Hey, Gabriel,
Hey, Gaybros, Jose.
where are we today?
I don't know if you remember, but in the last recording, you suggested I record from my patio, which I had full on planned to do today. It's really cold and windy, so I'm just in the same place as always.
So how cold is it in San Francisco?
Bitterly cold.
Bitterly cold. Is that what, like 60?
It felt like it could have been. Right now, it says it's 63. That was at 2 p.m. But the wind, Jose, and the humidity. Now it's 59. It says.
Wait, but without like giving an indication of where you live, it's like that area is in an alley.
Yeah. The next time you come, you should sit because it's weird. The wind comes not from like the side; it shoots down. And I think we have a tall apartment building next to us, and the wind hits it, and it just comes straight down to where I smoke weed, and it's awful.
What a way of spoiling the experience. Damn wind. But yeah, I'm in Chicago, same place, moving in a couple of weeks. At that point, I could actually make the personal effort of trying to rotate where I record from.
And it'll be a new location. Instead of saying I'm here in Chicago, you'll say what? I'm here in
Chicago.
Wonderful. Yeah. Variety is the spice of life here.
Exactly. But it's a different zip code, so I think that matters.
Now I'm not really sure what to say when I get into a cab in Chicago and I'm like, Wrigley Field! Because that's how I would get to your house.
Dude, I was thinking that I'm not going to be like sharing the zip code here, but it's like, cool. How many times did you get in a cab that you have to just say the address?
It was only once, to be honest, when I experimented flying into
Midway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you told me. Yeah, maybe that would be cheaper. Yeah, as they're like pretty far. Right, so what did we watch this time?
I almost forgot. This was your pick, and we picked the hour and 17-minute long film from 2004, Primer, winner of a Sundance Award, and that was it the Grand Jury Award that year?
Maybe, I don't know, dude.
Maybe I'm mistaken. Anyway, this was your pick, 2004 sci-fi film, Primer.
Yeah, and I don't know if I mentioned why I picked it in the previous time, but the other day we were having like a social time, and every single time that we have a social time, it's like someone comes up like with a question, and the question that they brought up is like, hey, what is that very secret or like not so well known movie that you really like and you think that more people should know about it? So
after you said Celine Dion goes boating, then you listened to everyone else's and somebody said Primer?
No, I should have done that and then leave the company. Like, I don't want any repercussions of this, just in case if someone watches it. It's like, it's on you, not on me. No, but someone actually brought up Primer. That was like the first one. I always feel like known and not well known kind of criteria, especially you say it's like everyone should know about this movie. I always feel like that's a bit of a tricky thing, because it can make you sound a bit pretentious about like no one knows it, but they should definitely know it.
Also, there's something about being an enigma of a film, right? Like, it sounds sexier as like, oh, you haven't heard of this 2004 sci-fi film? By the way, it did win the Grand Jury Prize at 2004 Sundance and the Alfred P. Sloan Award at Sundance, which is an award given to films that deal with technology.
That one, we will get to that, but yeah, sure. So the guy actually brought up Primer, and I think that he was like bringing it up as oh my god, you're going to be like mind blown. And my first reaction is like, oh yeah, oh my god, it has been a while since I heard about it, but it's like this like time travel movie. I remember like watching it when it came out a couple of times. It was like a bit more of a surprise for that person about like, oh, I thought that was going to be like bringing a slam dunk here to the table. So, but a part of me just realized that I like this movie, and I was curious to see how it it actually is. And you had never watched it. I think that I mentioned it to you a couple of times in the past, but I know that you are not that big into sci-fi, but I was curious to hear what would you think about a movie that is like so sci-fi and low budget at the same time.
I am not that into sci-fi. Everything you said is accurate. I do just want to call out that it's not that I'm anti-sci-fi. I just find it gimmicky. So when there's like great sci-fi film, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. Cool. So as this was my pick, I think that you have to summarize it. Good luck.
I barely understood this film, so I'm just gonna give a big picture. Plus, it was an hour and 17 minutes. So basically, we followed two engineers who, did they say best friends? They are clearly best friends. Yeah. They are super smart, like mechanical engineers, I would call them, like not air engineers. And they're trying to not get rich. They're trying to invent something, yes, and to make money, and they end up inventing something in one of their garages. It's Aaron's garage, even though these two, everyone in this film is white with a buzz cut and dresses like a Mormon missionary. I'm not quite sure why, but they're very difficult to tell apart. All white people with buzz cuts look the same.
I have to say that is that they dress as if they are like rejects from Office Space.
Right, it was a little weird, and I was like, if this was 1992, it would make sense. But clearly, they were trying to say something in 2004, and I'm not sure what it was.
I think that it's a bit more of they work in corporate America, and they have like this side gig of trying to make a startup that it will revolutionize the world and making them like filthy rich. So they want to make like the contrast of being like completely dressed up for corporate America and working.
And then they're in their garage making a time machine. Spoiler alert. Yep. So they invent this little machine that has no immediate obvious application. But essentially they make this tiny little thing it's not tiny, it's a small thing that is a time machine, and they're able to go back 6 hours. Is that how it starts?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really like 6 hours. Yeah, I mean, it's not so much about like the time, but it's more like they can go back to the point where they connect the machine.
But they have to invest as much time waiting.
Correct. It's a bit more of a... just go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so we're going to get into a lot of like logical loops here because, time travel. That's not to say they're like loopholes or like plot holes, but it's kind of heady stuff in terms of what reality is going, and it gets very, very complex in the end. Anyway, they're trying to figure out what to do with this time machine. They decide to build a bigger one. They start going back in time, and 6 hours looking at stock they can sell and make a profit in 6 hours. But then like other Aaron and Abe's start to show up, and it turns out they've been doing this a lot, and there's like health side effects, there's bleeding out of the nose, and then like the other versions of Aaron and Abe have their own agendas that they don't quite understand. Like they're like, I would never do that, why is my other self doing this? And eventually it gets to a head, which, okay, this film is 19 years old, but if anyone's gonna see Primer, they really shouldn't know the end. So I'm just gonna call it at that. Unless there's something you want to add that you think is important to discuss.
No, I think that's like basically it. I mean, there is like one thing that I forgot to send you. I can send it to you now if you want to see it like live. But there is like this
infographic on the Wikipedia article that could have replaced the entire film.
It's something like that. I mean, you can just like check it, and but it's like there is like this web comic that I really like that is called XKCD that they have been doing like for years and years. I stopped reading it like a long time ago, but he released like a movie narrative charts, like from some famous movies, like Lord of the Rings, like covering like the trilogy, about like, oh, this is what happens. This is like how the characters like get close together and how they actually play apart. Star Wars, Jurassic Park, 12 Angry Men as a completely like linear narrative. And then Primer is like something happened, and at the end it's like the characters, you don't know if you're seeing the original ones, if you're seeing others. And I think that the problem that I see is well, if you want to talk about like the ending.
Oh, let's just call spoiler alert. I really do feel like if anyone is actually going to watch this film, don't know the ending, because what little compelling material, I just don't want to ruin the ending to somebody who hasn't seen it, because if someone ruined the ending, I wouldn't bother watching this.
That's fair. That's fair. No, I could say that this movie, as you were saying about like, it was hard to actually understand what the heck was going on. I think that it does an exercise of trying to minimize what it shows on the screen. I'm not sure that that works too well for a movie that is like basically a puzzle. More than a movie is like a gymnastic exercise, you know?
I agree. And once I saw that it was like, okay, this is going to be almost like Donnie Darko in that, do you remember how much they respected that specific theory of time travel and the worm that they would follow and that idea of fate? And they really stuck to that truth in that universe. I was like, okay, they're going to stick to the truth of this time travel. Do I really want to pay attention or do I not? And the answer that I got to was that I felt this about this film the same way I felt about the Matthew McConaughey film that's not Arrival.
Interstellar.
That. It's like, okay, there's like a logic they've put forth in this universe and it probably sticks to that logic. Do I give a shit? The answer is no in Interstellar, and the answer is no here.
I would say that there is like a small difference, you know. So Donnie Darko is very like, I don't know who was like, it was Drew Barrymore? Well, I don't remember who was like staring at the camera saying, it's like, this is how time travel works. And he's like, and that's it. They actually like stare at the camera telling you, it's like, this is how it works. This is a bit more like from the other side of, they have no fucking idea about like how this works. So what they do is like, they keep pushing like the boundary about like, hey, the phone ring is like, I forgot about it. What about if we actually create a paradox? What is going to happen? And then it's going, from my perspective, without like getting if I like this movie or not, is like when I watched this movie the first time, and even now, I felt like pretty surprised about their very literal way of how they handle like time travel. That is pretty different from everything else. Everything else is a bit more of a magic component. In this case, they play a bit more like no, you cannot decide randomly about like where you go. Is that you have to go back to where you actually say that you're going to be like going back. So more than a time travel, is a bit of a rewind feature.
Yes, I just feel like this is like taking that. Hold on, my entire thought process might be gone or might be flawed. It's kind of like that story, like every story about a genie is be careful what you wish for because none of it's going to work out. That's what this film is, except without a genie, it's time travel.
True. I think. Look, this guy, I think that the creator of this movie, because he's director, main actor, everything, and I think that everyone else that is on the movie is their friends, Shane Carruth. I think that he's even like the composer, but
really? They just steal the soundtrack to Eyes Wide Shut? Because that's what they did in the last half.
I mean, was it really the same soundtrack, or it was like pretty inspired by
very similar, that piano song that has three notes, the dun, dun, dun.
All right. So the thing is, this guy, I think that by training, and I had to check, I think that he's an engineer. And you
can tell that they knew the science, they knew the theoretical science. Like, it's solid, I think, based on my very understanding of quantum
time travel. Yeah.
I mean, I've read what Einstein wrote about it, sure.
So he used to be a developer, like an engineer, so like a software developer. This is something, there is like, what is his name? There is this writer that I like, Greg Egan, that he writes sci-fi. And I remember reading one book of him that is called Permutation City, and it was like super dense, like super focused on what is like the logic, like the science behind it. But then the story itself, it was like not so important. It was like pretty clear about like, dude, you focus a lot on just what are like the sci-fi concepts that you want to develop, that they can feel enticing. And for me, this works, but also at the same time, I can understand like for someone that only likes like sci-fi as quote unquote Star Wars, they're going to be like feeling like this is a waste of time. I don't need like this detail. Here, I feel like he didn't care about the characters. He cared about like, hey, I had this idea for time travel. I'm going to be like spending 35 minutes of an hour and 15 minutes setting up like how they get to this. And then the rest is like just pushing the envelopes until everything goes out of control.
And the film did kind of jump the shark, as it were, when they focused on the girlfriend getting a gun pointed at her and how they were going to go back and change that time. And it's like all of a sudden we're supposed to care about their personal lives and their significant others when they invested not only no time in these other characters, but no time developing the two that we're forced to sit with for a long. It is an hour and 15 minutes, but like I just didn't care. And that was particularly highlighted for me in the scene towards the very end, when they're basically saying goodbye to each other when one turns evil and one turns good. Oh shit, spoiler alert. But one of them is like, leave here, I don't care what you do, I can't stop you anyway, but stay away from my loved ones. And I was like, I just don't care what happens to you or your loved ones. So
yeah, it's almost like, did you have loved ones?
I was like, wait, were those friends that you called and asked to be in your film for 2 seconds?
Yeah, the ones that you actually said that it's like, we're not going to be like sharing this with them. Those are your friends. I don't know. I felt like a bit more like screenwriting is not your strong point. It's like what you actually did is like just like designing like this equation and you're presenting the tidbits for it. You're presenting a puzzle. But it's like from a character development perspective, I would say that it may be close to the level of Christopher Nolan, of terribleness. He has no idea about like how to develop any character. And he likes to do puzzles.
I'm sorry, Pi was... But no, he didn't develop characters in Pi 2. You're right. You're completely right. But at least what this guy was trying to do was be super stylish and sacrifice substance. At least Christopher Nolan could do that in Pi. He couldn't quite pull it off here. That's not to say there's not like good things about this film. And I actually like the idea of a man working in corporate America as a software engineer and coming home and writing a script that he thinks can change the world, and then this coming out of it. That's an interesting idea to me. But the film as a standalone piece, it definitely feels like it's $7,000 budget, and it feels very much like a freshman attempt, and it was.
Yeah, it was. But it's like, if you think about like, this is a guy that doesn't have like training, you know, like for this. It's not like even. I had like a bit of vibe of David Lynch on this, like mix up like maybe with the Christopher Nolan kind of puzzle in the story.
I definitely see more. For me, it's more of like the game.
More Fincher?
What?
More Fincher?
Yeah, it's more like that. It tries to be moody and keeps you guessing, and you don't know what the truth is. But that's not fair. I don't reject feeling like you see David Lynch in it.
Yeah. But what I mean is like, for being like the first thing that he does, and it's true that we can actually say that he's someone with no formal training for making movies. He's writing the script, directing, like his own friends and acting on this thing. It's pretty decent result.
It is. It's an interesting experiment. I think the experiment failed, but I was more than happy to spend an hour and 15 minutes to see what this film was about.
Yeah, I had
Did
to say.
you do anything beyond that? Just
he did Upstream Color like 9 years later, and he hasn't done like anything since then. And I think that there were like some news about the character, about the person, but we can leave that on the side.
it's interesting because it was a big deal. This film was made for $7,000, and it's first off, plug for Sundance. I think this is the only festival that really elevates this sort of film, which is messy and not great, but, you know, interesting. But I did become obsessed as a journalist at Sundance just 8 years later for a film that got a ton of attention called Bellflower that was filmed for $12,000. And I kept thinking about that film, and I was like, even though that was a $12,000 film, it didn't feel like it for a second. And I never forgot that I was watching a low budget film when I was watching Primer.
Well, just think something is that was like, what, 7-8 years later? Is like technology changed a lot.
A lot. And I want to be fair to the filmmakers. I get it. I'm just saying, I do think that unfortunately they let their budget show.
Oh, sure, dude. Come on. Is that, let's just. Holy shit! I was going to say is like, if you, for example, I think about Tangerine. Did you watch it?
Yes.
Tangerine was shot with an iPhone.
But you never feel it, is my point. With this, it's like, oh yes, this is something somebody made in their garage.
There were not iPhones even back then.
I understand. I'm just saying, regardless of the technology, you don't have to feel that there wasn't a budget, and I felt that here a lot.
That's fair. I don't hold them like accountable. Is like my boyfriend also like say the same thing about like, well, it shows the actors are not that good. Is like, dude, they are their friends. Is that this is even like lower costs than Kevin Smith shooting Clerks.
Yeah, and good for them. But once the lack of money, and I don't think you need money to make a great film, but once the lack of it affects your film, then I think you need to reassess the scope of what you're doing.
Honestly, for me, it didn't bother me that it was like such a low cost, you know, like kind of movie. It's like, for me, it didn't show because the story was like a bit more intimate. How it showed, it was like the guy is not proficient enough in screenwriting, in screenplay writing. Is that I don't care about the characters. When they find the father, you know, of Rachel, I think that it was like the girl that they're trying to defend. It just feels that, dude, there is no fucking motivation. It's almost like you're trying to send a wrench into the engine for just like creating chaos. It's like, if you had written this properly, maybe we would care, but I cannot care for someone that is so on the background during 2 seconds. Is that makes no sense. It's like, and that's like the part that it shows. It's not that really low cost. Is that the guy is not experienced enough for doing this. But the rest of it, I just felt it's like, well, the camera work can be a bit but it's okay. It's as you said. It's like, maybe, I don't know, he was like too many David Fincher movies, and he tried to imitate him in some aspects, and he doesn't have the talent of David Fincher. But dude, we have seen like worse stuff.
Completely, and it would be interesting
with way more budgets.
It would have been interesting if a studio had paid attention to this and been like, hey, this guy's got something. Let's give him, you know, 25 million and see what he does. Again, I'm not saying you need millions to make a good movie. I'm just saying that it took away from the experience from it. And if it didn't affect you, great. I think that's great.
Now you're making me think about Pi and Following.
Let's do a double feature next week.
Of those two? I mean, they're like
do a triple feature and Memento.
What the fuck, Memento? I mean, Following is the first one by Nolan.
Yes,
and they're from the same year, Pi and Following.
That was a good year for film.
Maybe.
It was the birth of two geniuses that would be working 30 years later.
Geniuses. Yeah, you're right. Now let me just think. I wonder. Look, the budget for Following was $6,000, even lower. So I would be down for watching Following. Did you watch it?
I feel like I absolutely must have, but I can't even say what Following is about.
Okay. I would be fine, like just like trying to watch this and trying to compare, but Pi has like a significantly larger budget.
I don't know that I've seen this, to be honest. The description doesn't sound familiar at all.
Yeah.
How weird.
Yeah, it was like both of them like back to back about like, oh my god, they're like two super famous directors now in the OOs. I have to watch where they come from.
That's fair. I'm so curious. I'm not trying to rush this, but I'm so curious to hear your score. I don't even know how I'm going to score this.
No, I mean that's completely fine. I respect it. I just think that this is a movie that if you like sci-fi, is far from perfect. Like really, really far from perfect. But I still think that it does something relatively unique on a field that is like completely overloaded. Like it's like time travel stories. How he approaches it.
I guess I'm approaching this with the assumption that when we judge this movie, we're really judging it based on the direction. So we kind of have to judge him as a director, or at least the quality of the direction. And I don't blame him for not having experience in filmmaking or script writing, but like, isn't that the skill required of a director? Is, hey, if you have a gap in your skill set, you delegate. And maybe he didn't have that option, but
I don't think, unless he was like to one of his friends. And this feels like a bit more of
there's a regional theater that he could have called upon the actors to.
But they would charge money.
That's true.
So honestly, I think that this was a bit more of a pet project, more of I have this idea. Like cinema always gets time travel wrong, almost like magic. You know, I want to do something that it feels like more realistic. And he took it on himself. And usually, to be completely fair, when we are scoring or we are like rating the movies, yeah, we're going to be like talking a lot about the direction, the vision, and the lies. But when we are scoring them, it's usually by the end result.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and we have mentioned like multiple times about like some movies are more than the sum of their parts. And there are other ones that they just fall apart when you start looking into each one of the parts, like Not on a Scandal.
That was a low blow.
I still feel pissed about that movie. Should we go over these questions for Primer?
On a Scandal better is if Julianne Moore starred.
You know what I was thinking? I was thinking something about Julianne Moore right now, and I was saying that it's like, well, at least he's not there.
And I was recording the video of our podcast, so I can just put like stills of your facial expressions on a YouTube like bloopers reel.
Oh, you mean like those thumbnails that is like now YouTube is like basically the thumbnail, so reaction to something.
Yeah.
And it's like,
you won't believe what Jose said about Christopher Nolan.
Exactly.
Number 4 really pisses me off.
Yeah. So going back to Primer, would you watch it again?
Yes, I will never seek it out again, but it's not that I wouldn't.
Sorry, did you watch it with your husband?
I actually, whenever we watch a sci-fi film, I tell him, this is what I'm watching, you have 6 days to show interest, and then he doesn't, and I watch it alone.
So he didn't show interest about this one?
He did, but then I waited and he didn't watch it. And I was like, well, I'm watching it alone
now. Did he know it?
No, he did not. And he was very excited about the way I described it, which was human-centered sci-fi drama. Which is not accurate, but I was thinking it was more like Moon, which was human-centered sci-fi drama.
Yeah, this is that they could have been plants. Is the guy actually
like clinical draw?
Yeah, maybe that's the Fincher part. But I think that the AI could actually replace like the humans by plants, and you can reenact this.
I had a much more conversation with an AI about this film than I did watching this film.
All right, for me, I will watch it again. Not tomorrow, but probably like in 5 months. You know, it's like I remember like going through the same steps of, oh, that's right, that's how to do it. Would you recommend it?
No.
No, not even if someone asks you about like, hey, I want to watch like a hardcore sci-fi movie.
About time travel, I'd say Donnie Darko.
Once again, I think that. Sorry, I was going to say like I think that I said earlier like Gwyneth Paltrow is. It's not Gwyneth Paltrow. It's
No, it's who you said before, Drew Barrymore. She said
Drew
the
Barrymore.
most beautiful phrase in the English language is cellar door in Donnie Darko. That's how deep that film is.
Dude, that film, I remember like when we watched it, I felt scam about like, dude, this is not what I remember. It's like someone changed this.
In our early 20s.
This we definitely were. This is something that if someone asks me about, like, I want to watch a hardcore sci-fi movie, this is it. This is my top one pick.
Primer?
Primer.
A hardcore sci-fi film, this is what you would recommend.
Yes.
Primer, out of every movie that's existed. Not Metropolis, not...
No. Metropolis is not hardcore, dude.
Okay, how about 2001: A Space Odyssey? You would recommend Primer over 2001: A Space
About
Odyssey?
time travel. Okay, you got me. Because someone can also, I mean, I love Blade Runner, but I feel like it's a noir movie before being a sci-fi. They don't care too much about like the science part in there.
Even before the most recent reboot of Star Trek?
Yes. Yes, the J.J. Abrams one. Yes.
Actually, I couldn't think of a serious sci-fi film.
No, but you're right. Like 2001 is,
I mean,
it's hardcore.
I would recommend most of the Jurassic Park movies before Primer. That's not a joke. I mean, you don't think Jurassic Park 1 at the very least is a better film than Primer?
Well, I would say that it has like a sci-fi component, but I wouldn't say that it's like as hardcore as Primer. And also, it's like a puzzle.
Hardcore, you're talking about like or a heavy focus on technology.
Correct. Yeah.
I thought you were just talking about like a commitment to the genre. I got it.
No. I'm talking about like, hey, this guy like took seriously like technology part, and it's a puzzle. If someone asks me about like, hey, I want to see a movie that it feels like I'm unraveling a mystery, I'd probably go with some Christopher Nolan movies, because he likes, or David Fincher, like The Game, for example. But this one, I feel like what he actually tries to do is like, I want to present you a puzzle, and I want to actually, like in only 70 minutes, like seeing you like trying to decipher exactly what is going on.
That's fair. It's interesting. My mind was going to The Prestige. I don't know why.
The Prestige is good. I like The Prestige.
Interesting.
I think that it may be like my favorite Nolan movie. Okay, this conversation is over. Let's move to something else.
I was trying to think of a Christopher Nolan film I liked, and I'm sure they exist.
Memento?
I did like the first Batman.
Yeah, the first one is the best.
Yeah. Anyway. Back to the question.
Yeah. Would you remember Primer?
Yes. Everything I gave in my synopsis, I will remember.
Yeah. I remember most of it. I remember that it's like, oh, then the father of that random woman that we haven't seen yet suddenly shows up that he's traveling too. What the fuck?
When is the last time you saw this film? Like, just roughly how many years ago?
Like, oh, maybe I watched it after I moved to the States. Let's say 10 years.
Okay, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not yesterday, definitely. Is there anything artistic about it?
Oof.
That's tricky.
Their application of science to the arts was very artistic. Yes. I
love that. Answer, not answer.
My gut would be to say no. I don't think there's nothing to call out that's particularly brilliant besides what you mentioned, is that it is a pretty heavy puzzle to pull apart. That is well done. So if that's artistic, yes.
it's up to you, however you want to take it. Is that for me, I'm going to go with yes, because I'm as you know, like frugal person. This may show that it's like $7,000, but I think that is significantly better than I would have expected a movie that it only costed $7,000 to look like.
So the artfulness of this for you is what they were able to do with so few dollars.
Is the art of frugality.
Boy, do I have a friend for you. His name's Diego.
But honestly, you say this, my boyfriend said that. My boyfriend was saying, like, these actors are terrible. And I say, like, yes, they are. There is no way of actually, like, saving this, like, from an acting perspective. But, dude, I just feel like the end result is not a $7,000 result.
And that's fine. But I feel like with a better director, we wouldn't have felt that. It's like when we, at some point, we'll watch Pi, you'll see the strength of his direction, even though it was super low budget. And that's what we have to compare him to, are similar low budgets that make you feel like they have the biggest budget in the world.
Sure. Tangerine had a $100,000 budget.
Is that how much an iPhone costs now?
Probably. That's how much the plebs pay for it.
So glad I use Android.
It's out of control. It may be. We have to rewatch it again. I remember like not being like so over impressed by Pi or Following. I was finished like, cool, first attempt at least.
Well, now that I know that your only criteria for judging films is if they make $7,000 look okay, I think you'll be re-impressed by Pi.
Sure. I'm checking. Lyrics had like $27,000 as budget.
Still pretty amazing for a film that has stood the test of time.
Clerks?
Yeah, I mean, we're still talking about it. It's like, what, 40 years old almost? Well, like 35-ish.
Okay, we never watched it.
I don't like it. I'm just saying its staying power in the cultural conscience has been pretty impressive for a $27,000 film. Those come along very rarely.
Okay.
Witch movie, Blair Witch is another one.
That's true. Blair Witch, I think that it actually had like some cheating. I think that they spent like a lot of money on how do you say, $200,000 on budget, but I think that they spent like 3 times the price of production in marketing.
Yeah, once it got acquired. Was that a Sundance movie? Who discovered?
I don't think so. Oh no, you're right. Premiere at the Sundance Film Festival. Yeah, and it's like when the movie premiered at Sundance Film Festival at midnight on January 23rd, 1991, its promotional marketing campaign listed the actors as either missing or deceased.
So there's multiple categories at Sundance, and one of them is called Sundance at Midnight or Park City at Midnight, which is all their horror films they show late, and it's surprisingly good. Like the shit I've seen there. I saw The Descent there, and my mind was just like.
You remember what we said about Donnie Darko?
No, is that a Sundance movie too? God damn it.
I don't know. That would be hilarious. Donnie Darko was that. I don't doubt you. It's like I just feel like I wish that. The film premiere on Sundance. Yep, on 2001.
You're welcome, world.
I had to say that it's like I wish that we could actually go to Sundance.
One day, buddy. Maybe that's what we'll do this year.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's a better plan. Yeah.
Let's talk about this offline.
Okay. We don't need to share this. Do you think that Primer is a timeless piece?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I did think a lot how cell phones might have influenced all of their activities, but I mean, they do talk about how the cell phone was looking. I mean, they incorporate a little bit, but none of the technology is so rooted in a point in time.
Yeah.
None of like culturally rooted in a point in time.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that he actually introduced that factor, like the mobile phone, as like something, but there would have been like other ways that they could have done it, So it was like, sure, yeah, there are mobile phones on this story, but probably there are like other ways of generating the same results,
Yep.
So yeah, for me, it's also like endless. Would you turn this into a TV show?
To be honest, yeah.
Huh.
I feel like if they had more time to go into the characters and the stories and explore the motivations of the other versions of Aaron and Abe, that I think there's plenty there. Yeah, you could definitely build out a compelling TV show.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that you're right. That is like, for us, we just received this in 70 minutes, but it would be interesting to actually see like how jaded they become as they do like more and more loops across the story.
The way the film ends for, is it Abe? I don't remember. I mean, he's building a new machine,
like a whole room, yeah,
much larger. I was like, oh, I want to see what he ruins with that machine.
Well, he fucks up. Yeah, Aaron is like the one that actually we see him in another country, like just like giving instructions about like what to build. Yeah, so I agree with you. I think that this could be like interesting. Probably I could change who writes the script of this, because definitely I wouldn't let this guy like write 10 hours of a show.
Yeah, imagine it like a Black Mirror style show. I mean, obviously not episodic so much, but I could get on board.
Yeah, that's true. Could this have been a short?
I mean, it was just like 9 minutes longer than a short, so yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they could have cut out 9 minutes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that if you kept like those 30 first minutes that they are like basically exposition and just showing, like getting back a bit on the science aspect, you could get the same movie.
But doesn't it, to be exposition, doesn't it have to add to the plot?
Well, that's what I think, is like the movie would have been the same. The only thing is that it wouldn't be a movie, it would be a short.
Yes, yeah. No, you could cut this down for sure. This could have been, well, I mean, it won the Grand Jury Prize, but as a short, this could have killed the awards at Sundance.
Oh, you think? Oh, no, that's fair. Usually you don't expect much from the shorts. The only thing is that having something as dense as this on the short category may be too much.
Yeah, agreed.
So, do you think that this movie? But the thing, sorry, going back to these questions, is like it reminds me a lot of in sci-fi. There is a lot of writers that they only focus on short stories instead of novels, instead of a regular book. And the reason is that because they focus more on the idea and they don't want to develop like the rest of the world into something, like complete. So it's like, if I can use like 30, 50 pages for bringing this idea across the table, why do I need to focus also in the human component of this?
That's an interesting point. It makes me want to dig up some stats on this. I'm thinking of like Chekhov wrote it. It doesn't matter. I want to dive into this. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. How interesting. Why they prefer that. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. Like I was looking at, I have a collection of short stories by J.G. Ballard. Like, yeah, they write shorts too.
Well, because they know that the value is not about like the human aspect that it takes like hundreds of pages for just getting into the psyche of the characters. It's a bit more, it's like, hey, I thought about a scientific or sci-fi or more fiction concept. What about if I just present it as an idea? And most of the characters, they're like just vehicles for making that idea work.
Imagine a world where Star Wars was just a series of short stories. That would be amazing.
So what you're saying is like imagining a world where Star Wars doesn't exist.
Yes, please.
I wouldn't be opposed to that. I'm not like the biggest Star Wars fan. But Star Trek on the other hand. Do you think that Premiere could have been better?
Yes. Just
How?
write yes in all caps. No, I mean, all the things we said, like, this is just really an amateurish. It's amateurish in a number of ways. Not every way, but there's just a lot of room. Like, if you had just hired one EP that knew what he was doing, was a seasoned professional, this would have been a very, very different piece and probably more palatable and better, in my opinion, better.
No, that's fair. I agree. I think that for me, it's the script. Is like this was like Paul's more as we're talking about like the difference between a short story, a sci-fi short story, and a regular movie. Is that if someone could have elevated this from short story to a regular book that it gets adapted into a movie, I think that we could have been into one of the biggest sci-fi classics ever.
Yeah, like if the guy had just taken the idea for his story to someone like Noah Baumbach, this could have just been about divorce, and it would have been better.
Like a time travel around divorce. It would be like a mystery between like a Mary's story with Groundhog Day.
Exactly. That's how it could have been better, Jose. Noah Baumbach.
He's a poet.
He's a poet.
Come on, should we score these?
We should. It was your pick, so I have to go first. I don't know what to do with this, man. A 6?
A 6? Okay. My score is a 7.
Sounds about right.
Yeah,
For our discussion.
Yeah. I still think that this is far from perfect. Let's be honest, you know. But this is one of these like A for effort, and because for me it lands. But I understand that it lands more as a puzzle, hardcore sci-fi idea, more than as a movie.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it wasn't a successful attempt, but it was still interesting, and I would still rather watch that than anything I could walk into an AMC and watch today. So,
not even like the artisan films.
It depends on whether they have the really good ones. Like, are they showing up again?
Well, Fast Six.
So much fun of.
West Side Story.
Like 6 months ago, we were like, "How is this an artisan film?"
I remember
like
West
Galaxy 2 or something.
Oh my God. I think that West Side Story was an artisan film. That is like, I'm pretty sure that this was like $100 million budget at least.
You know, those small craft films directed by Spielberg.
It's like the voice of the director of an auteur, making a remake of a movie from the 60s. Okay.
Wait, artisan film just mean in a different language? Is that what it is?
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Oh, Joker. Joker was also an artisan film.
That's what it was. That was,
Yeah. It's like, no, this is not. Okay, man. So where are we watching this?
I had an entire plan picked out. I was gonna make you watch a bad Paul Walker movie that I love. There was a Todd Haynes film that we had talked about watching with Julianne Moore, but I think we need to watch Following.
Let's do it. I mean, I'm absolutely fine. It's like now you actually challenge me on is like, oh, is this like terrible for the first time, you know, that someone directs a movie? Now I want to compare it with the legend, Christopher Nolan.
I'm also a little worried. I told you for the 11 years we've known each other, I've seen this movie and I haven't. So,
well, the truth will come out next
week.
Okay. Anything else to say about Primer?
No.
To everyone else listening to us, thank you so much for listening.
And wash your hands just for like normal hygiene.
Yeah. No special occasions this time.
No.
Okay, bye.